Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. As is the weekly tradition and has been for the last couple now, we're doing a faction tournament today. Today it is Cybran, as you can probably see from the logos in the top right corner, and we have got a couple of good players in the first round. I know the last tournament kind of started with a curb stop. I'm hoping that this will not be the case here. We've got Hora, who is otherwise known as Mad Mozart, coming back from the grave to compete in a tourney. I have not seen him around in ages. And Pachi, otherwise known as Turin Bar. That is left side for Turin, right side for Mozart. We can go ahead and dive into the build orders here. Looks like we've got a Hunter out first for Mozart. He's going to drop 2 power generators, walk over just a hair, get a couple of mass extractors online, and then continue with his build. Pachi has got a bit more of a build order queued. We can see what he is going for, and that looks like a total of 3 land factories without an early aggressor. But he is going to get a bit of manual reclaim and get a whole hell of a lot of units out quickly onto the map, which is going to be very, very important for him, as map control is a critical thing on Blasted Rock. That is the map we're playing on. Here's your reclaim heat map. 38 mass rocks all scattered around with a bunch of 5 and 10s around all of the hills here. You can see that little hunter running past in the rear. Not yet detected. There, Mantis has picked it up, and Mozart has absolutely lost that thing, sadly enough. Yep, forgot the little guy on the corner. He was probably picturing an engineer heading around this side to get this manual reclaim and pick up the Hydra mass extractor on that edge, in which case that was good placement, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. I am just waiting on this tournament. There has to be at least 1 Fire Beetle attempt. Come on, guys. It's freaking Cybran all the way. You gotta do it at least one time. Yeah, win by Fire Beetle would be the best, Tino. So with 3 land factories, that's going to put him just a little bit ahead of where Mozart is at. I'm sure Mozart is going to be building more land factories around the edges as time goes on, and then we do have a little bit of a raid right here for Pachi, but I'm more interested in these 2 moles that are just kind of having a staring contest over here on the left side of the map, with all of this fighting going on in the background and expansion happening all the way around the outside edge. These 2 little guys, yeah, they're just having a face-off. Which one will win, I do not know. Perhaps one will just spontaneously explode at some point. Too bad those guys don't have weaponry, because that would sure make this go a whole hell of a lot quicker. We do have a couple of Mantis moving up to the north as well from Pachi, so those will probably pick up that mole there. And then 2-on-1 engagement for just enough time that is going to result in a win for Mozart on the south. So of course the ever-increasing trickle of units shall continue, and these guys will try to secure enough mass extractors to gain an upper hand on their opponent. ACU looks like it's moving to the southern edge for Turin, but not before a couple of Mantis leak in the back. That's going to cause a little bit of a headache, or possibly a face ache, for this engineer that is trying to build a Hydro, but surely, shortly there shall be an aggressing force from Turin that will knock that out, and there it is right there. So looks like Hora is going to move to the north. That's going to put these ACUs on opposed positions in the map, and then we do have Pachi with a couple of units of his own on the top right. So these guys are trading blow for blow right now, with the units coming to their aid. We do have a mole over on this side as well, providing a little bit of free intel, peeking around the corner at that engineer in the bottom right. Looks like the ACU placement is going to shift towards aggressive for Turin as he heads up to try and exert pressure on the right side expansion for Hora. This is one of the critical aspects of the early game on a small map like this. Blasted Rock is 5k, every little tank counts, and your ACU is worth quite a bit of a fighting force. So if you're able to get that thing up in here and try to push your opponent out of one of the expansions, you will usually come out far, far ahead. Now this is gonna suck if these guys get in. If we take a look at the intel, it looks like we've only got 1 land scout on the entire map for Mozart. Little bit better intel for Pachi, but still not conclusive by any means as to where all of the units are. He does know that those are up there now. It's going to be a shame to lose that Hydro, but he does have the cushion in his economy to do so without wrecking him. He also was able to eliminate the expansion on this side completely, so good on him for that. And it looks like early map control is going to tend towards Turin Bar. He's running 23 mass per tick, 240 power with 19 and 200 on the dial for his opponent. Of course, that little bit of a raid from Hora was able to do a lot of good over on that edge. Looks like the mass extractors claimed is going to slightly favor Pachi, but honestly, this is still salvageable for Mozart if he's able, oh no, to keep the ACU out of this base. This is going to be a problem. His ACU is slam on the other side. With the amount of factories in play, I sincerely doubt that we will see an actual base trade, although that would be quite hilarious indeed had my factories not building. Oh dear, oh dearly dear, that's not a good sign, Mozart. We can forgive him though, because he is very rusty, I'm sure, because I sure as hell haven't seen him competing anywhere. ACU is going to wade in. Notice the placements on the front edge here. ACU body blocking for the rest of his force, trying to tank all of the damage from those Mantis so that his own tanks stay alive as his opponent dies. That reduces the damage potential of the opponent while leaving your own forces intact. Mozart is going to just walk in, I think, and admit defeat. He is going to stand in the midst of the tanks and take what is coming to him. That's going to leave 7 land factories in total on the right, with number 8 coming up on the left. I don't think Mozart was as behind as he thought he was for part of that game. Definitely the few tanks that he didn't build due to the idle factories made the difference on that. And there he goes. But that was some really strong map control and rating for Pachi, which is what made the difference in that game. And this is exactly what gets me frustrated with these things as I'm competing on my own, because when these raids start happening, I totally lose track of everything that is going on and get incredibly frustrated and can't keep a handle on my APM and whatnot. Kudos to Pachi for initiating the raiding, and well done, Mozart, re-entering the battlefield. Hopefully he's brushed a little rust off and he'll be able to compete a little bit better as the day goes on. Well played from both of them. Round 2 of the winner's bracket is going to be on a little map called Eridania. Like I just said, I know we have seen this one before. This one was in the T3 tournament, but it was played as a 3v3 or a 4v4, I can't remember. This is apparently the 1 versus 1 version of the map. On the left-hand side, we've got Commander Diva, of course, symmetrical Cybran all the way for the factions of choice, and then we've got Blood Avenger on the south side. Both of these guys dropping a land factory first, engineer first out of the factory for both as well, and then we've got 3 power generators with a mix of mass extractors in for Blood Avenger. Excuse me indeed. Sorry guys, don't know what is coming over me. So second air is a good option on this map. It is big enough. It is a 10-kilometer battlefield. There's a Hydro up on the front edge and 2 in the center, not 1 in the base, so you gotta exercise your strategic builds so that you don't power stall too terribly much. If we take a look at our reclaim, you can see these are all tree clumps that are available for power, so you can actually short yourself a couple of P-gens here as long as you get an attack moved engineer to the back, as Commander Diva is doing. And you'll be able to float yourself fine and dandy to get this early game alive. I definitely would have initiated a second double adjacency factory here instead of putting power generators in place, but it looks like Blood Avenger is going for power generator adjacency on the mass extractor to get an early T2 mechs. Bit of a sketchy move, might work on this big of a map with this much reclaim. Are there any boulders? Looks like we got some 5 and 10 mass rocks around pretty much all of the hills. So there is a substantial amount of reclaim, but not a monumental amount of reclaim. Although, looking at it, there's probably 300 mass just right there, so maybe a little bit more than I thought there was. So we've got a total of 7 power generators going online for a third air factory. Normally that wouldn't be enough power, I don't think. Commander Diva, let's go ahead and take a look. See, that is going to be minus 23 to plus 6 as the factories are cycling and the trees are being reclaimed. So hopefully he can float himself up for that factory. He's saying his build order sucks. I don't think it sucks as much as he thinks it does. On the other side, Blood Avenger balanced out nicely at -1 plus 20, but he's only running one factory in total. His expansion is going to be good, but he's not going to have the unit count to maintain a push where his opponent is already 2 factories ahead of his build. This is not going to end well, I think, for Blood Avenger. We'll just have to see how it goes. This is either going to get him killed early in the game. He is getting more factories up on the right-hand edge with a single engineer. Bit slow for my taste, but maybe it'll work. He's either going to get creamed early, or he's going to do the obliteration later on due to having the extra mass from this. Although I don't see him actually biting off a mass extractor upgrade quite yet. So maybe he's actually postponing that till a later time. He is going to be a little bit slower on his air factory, so that might set him back just a little bit if there's a first bomber. It looks like first Inti is out of the factory for Commander Diva, which is typically the better thing to do if you're going third air, not second. That bomber is probably going to have an interceptor to meet it at this point in the game, because usually your opponent will have gone for a faster second air factory, but that doesn't look... No, he is actually going bomber. He's going to get an interceptor and a scout out, shoot across and try to lock the air factory, and then he's going to get the bomber out to hit all these expansions. I do love this little bit of run by here. Commander Diva going to pick up an engineer as it's building the mass extractors, going to keep fleeing from the units on that edge. Diva does have the intel, thanks to that mole, to know exactly what is coming his way and when, and he's going to run on over this way and pick up yet another engineer. Blood Avenger showing his weakness here, as he simply does not have any land units to push out and intercept these forces. He does have the 2 Mantis on the front. Thankfully, those are coming to a standstill. He will be able to intercept, it looks like, as that Mantis runs in. And in comes the bomber. That would be an excellent target right there. He'd be able to knock out 3 engineers in one pass. Those are just kind of sitting idle there at the front. Let me go ahead and pick up this just so we can see the eco. Minus 84 power, minus 3 mass, and he is trying to get more power generators online. I think that he'll be okay. Yeah, it does look like he will be fine. Oh, 3 engineers down. That is a painful, painful pass indeed. But he does have 2 interceptors online, so he will be able to pick that bomber quite easily indeed, and then be in a good position to fight for the air control. If we're looking at map, it looks like Commander Diva is going to be able to exert a bit more pressure on the map as a whole. This engineer really needs a companion. You need 2 NGs over there building those land factories. Otherwise, Sonny, you are going to get swept. No reclaim in the center to go after to speak of. We have another land factory coming online in the mid for Commander Diva. 2 for Blood Avenger, along with another factory that just got placed right there. So we are going to need a little bit more production on the southern edge, but overall it is slowly but surely coming online for Blood Avenger. Something I will point out, it looks like Blood Avenger is crushing it in eco right now. He is 50% greater on mass income with equal power income, but you'll notice that Commander Diva is ticking up very rapidly as he clears these mass extractors with his engineers, or claims them rather. We also have a pretty good and diverse amount of build power. You've got factories over here, factories in the middle, factories center, flat factories right. All in all, he's going to be able to build units wherever he needs them. That is important for Cybran, because you don't have any hover units to get across. So to get any units over here, if your factories are up here, you either have to run all the way around the back or all the way around the pond. There is no easy access point. So factories everywhere is a really dang good idea. let me go ahead and take a look at the actual count. We have got a total of 11 factories for Commander Diva on 31 Mass Per Tick, 41 for Blood Avenger on a scant 8 land factories. But he does have an equivalent number queued once he's able to get his extras online. So he was earlier to eco, later to unit count. If he can catch up, and if he doesn't get squashed by raiding, he might actually be fine. This is not a good sign, though. We've got a land factory going offline. He really needs to get more build power up, otherwise he is going to get T1 spammed to death. We've also got a drop here. Excellent reclaim pick by Blood Avenger. He's also running his engineer towards the south, but we're going to see a lot of these mass extractors fall to the transported engineer up on that edge. I love the Jester play. This is going to be fantastic. There's not enough interceptors on that side to win an air fight and kill the Jester as long as Blood Avenger is on his toes about it. So when these other empties swoop in to claim the gunship, all he's got to do is get the superior turn on it and he will be fine. But he does need to watch his air production, and also we have 3 Mantis moving in on the rear. The interceptors were slightly out of place. That was not the turn that we were looking for, but we are going to see a couple of interceptors drop regardless. Bringing the fight away, Commander Diva is doing the correct thing to try and win air. Looks like he might come out 1 to 2 interceptors ahead, no 3 interceptors ahead, as more join from the factory in the rear. Of course, when you're producing Jesters, you're not producing interceptors, and that could turn out badly for you, but the Jesters will do their job and claim the Mantis that were in the rear. There's still 2 that might cause some issues, but I think overall we're in a pretty dang good spot. Tier 2 factory is online. The first Rhino is out of the gate. That T2 rush is going to do well in trying to reclaim the map control, but you will notice with the loss of all these extractors on the outside edges how low Blood Avenger's eco has dropped. That is a fairly good T2 shift, but I think he just didn't have enough T1 units online to deny the push before he made that switch. This is going to hurt right here, though. We're going to lose 2 to 3 mass extractors depending on how the units react, but yet more build power is going to go offline for Blood Avenger, and we now have some units on the south edge that I don't think are on radar. No, they are not. These Rhinos are going to get swarmed by Mantis, going to do the absolute best that they can, but unfortunately even a T2 unit, beefy as they are, gets absolutely swarmed by that many T1. You gotta get into your meat shielding factories. You gotta protect those units. Right now he's running up in the back and he has the advantage of the Mantis targeting other things, but that is going to leave a path of destruction through the main base. Another Rhino on the front line going to go down, taking a couple of Mantis with it, but getting stunned by those Medusas as they roll in. Looks like that's going to be 2 Rhinos in the base to defend against a total of about 15 Mantis. That is simply not enough. A huge grouping moving down from the north, bit slow on the uptake for those units. They were just kind of sitting unused for the most part, and those Mantis are going to get another free pass through the base, taking more power generators with them. Apparently Blood Avenger is not able to make a selection box, maybe having some user interface issues. We've got 31 mass per tick and 381 on the power dial for yellow, while we have 49 and 660 for Commander Diva. The air factory is now offline. That's not the end of the world though, because the T2 factory can produce flak. You just got to get a T1 land factory online to get build power up and start reclaiming all of that mess. Where is the ACU? The ACU is on the front line, taking hits from multiple T1 point events and a Cerberus turret. Not long for this world indeed. He was going in to try for the draw, but that is not going to work out. Blood Avenger takes the detonation. So that was an interesting game. And the reason why I say so is that it's kind of diametrically opposed game philosophies. You've got quick expansion with units followed later by economy. You've got very, very fast scaling on your unit count. And then on the southern side, we had extra early engineers, fewer factories, trying to get the T2 mass extractors online, which he did, and then jumping to the T2 phase. I think Blood Avenger's plan would work with just a couple more T1 factories. You gotta get enough spam out to not completely lose map control before you can make that T2 shift. And that goes to your classic dilemma for when do I shift to T2, or what qualifies as a T2 rush. If you're losing that much of the map when you make your T2 shift, you did it too early, or you didn't have enough units on the map already. If you're able to ideally keep control of all of the territory you have and make the T2 shift successfully, even though you have a dip in unit count, then you did it perfectly. All right, kind of a steamroll, but there's a lesson to be learned here, and it's good to see a couple of different build orders and how different players approach this map. Well played to both of these guys. We're gonna go spectate another game. We're gonna drop down to the losers bracket for the next game. Round one is gonna be on Williamson's Bridge. This is a nightmare of a map with a catastrophe waiting to happen in the center. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. Plasma Wolf is on the top left, Momo Uchiha on the bottom right, equally matched 1400 rated players, of course, both taking Cybran since this is the Cybran Tourney. On Williamson's, we've got Reclaim in the back over here. We've got a boulder, couple of pebbles to pick up, although judging by the scale of Supreme Commander, those are building-sized boulders to be sure. We've got more Reclaim on the left and the right, and then moving on down through the center, you've got additional Reclaim. So you are going to want to get out some early engineers. This mole is coming to loop around the back edge and see what is going on for Plasma, which is a really good choice to make because you can see if your opponent is making an air factory or not. On a 5K map, it is a perfect opportunity to not build an air factory and simply build loads and loads of land to squash your opponent with, but you need to know if they are going for air. So that mole will do a pretty good job of telling exactly what's going on down there, in addition to breaking up the tree clumps and making Reclaim more difficult. On the north side, Plasma has gone first land, dropped a couple of power generators. He's going for an additional 3 before his second land factory. The mass extractors on Williamson's are annoyingly spread out, so you've got to kind of walk around to get those. Some of them are going to have to be picked up by engineers. Momo finishing off his initial 5 power generators with the ACU on the original land factory. And then we'll have to see where he goes from there. Second land is probably the way that you want to go. That is going to be additional setup for possibly air factories in the back, but I think that may just be a power grid that's on a template because he just kind of scattered that around down there. There is a hunter on the mole. ACU is going to drop kick it in the face, obliterating it into a million shards, and there goes all the intel. But at least Plasma will know exactly what is going on. Momo Uchiha has chosen to assist his land factory for some unknown reason. I have absolutely no clue what the hell is going on with that. But now his ACU is walking to the north without having built a second factory. We have a single engineer building 2 more. Momo, I know you're not a bad player, but what the crap, dude? That is the weirdest build order I've ever seen in my entire life, and I don't think it got you anywhere. Plasma is going to be dropping 1 additional power generator and an extra land factory. Then we've got a total of 5 P-gens going down before the air factory, then spamming more P-gens in the midst of a couple of more land factories. So when you're building, your basic rule of thumb is going to be for every land factory, you need 1 T1 power generator extra. And for every air factory, you're going to need 4 power generators in order to meet your needs. This raid is going to get picked off by the ACU later, but it did its job, killing the engineer there and forcing the ACU off of its path. You'll notice that Plasma, knowing that there is an ACU in that section of the map, he's pulled his Mantis to the rear, and he's now going to try pushing on the other edge. This is a relatively narrow section of the map, So if you know the ACU is wandering around right here, you really don't have a whole lot of hope of getting in and raiding around. Although, you could just go straight up the center and be a brave little mantis and get in the front door, since all of the focus is on the back doors for entry. Anyway, your initial build is typically going to be 5 T1 power generators with 2 land factories, or 7 T1 power generators and a land and an air, and then after that you just add your power generators as you're building your land factories. And this one down here is building power as 2 engineers are building land factories, and that's typically your balance, because 2 engineers building a factory are going to finish at about roughly the same time as 1 engineer building power generators. So you can also scale that way if you don't feel like counting. So that's going to give 4 land factories on this side with no apparent plans for an air factory. We've got 3 land factories rolling into the air number 4 for Plasma. That means he is going to be at a very slight disadvantage later on in the game for units, but since his early factories were up more quickly, he'll probably be able to balance this out with a little bit of ACU combat for the foreseeable future. So I don't think that he's going to be necessarily put on his back foot too much. Plasma is going to be able to lock down. If you're able to get an entire expansion all to yourself, that is golden, because you get all the mass extractors, all the reclaim, and you kind of relegate your opponent to a paltry portion of the opposing side. 4 mass extractors, missing out on the additional 2 that you can claim on this side, which means that there's a 4-mex disparity between the 2 players. And then we've also got a nice little bit of stationary defense over here, guarding the choke point so that run-bys cannot happen, and overall Momo is locked into a little box. Radar are going to go down along with the final mass extractor on this side as Plasma is slowly but surely progressing towards the base. There is quite a lot of land on this side for Momo. He does have enough technically to kill the ACU if the ACU was by itself or haphazardly placed, but hopefully Plasma is wily enough to realize that he does need to bring his units in with him. We do have some on the north, some on the south, ready to go in a pincer maneuver should the base present itself as a target. On the northern edge, we do have 1 additional land factory for Momo, who is bringing his ACU back into the conflict to the south, hopefully in order to save his base from destruction. I would love to see a couple of additional factories, or at least an air factory, come online. We do have bombers producing for Plasma, or at least 1 bomber, no additional air units after that. But the land factory count is growing. Plasma's currently running 19 mass per tick, 300 power, running all of his factories wide open in the number of 6. And on the south side, Momo at 15 mass per tick, stalling out and running 5 land factories. Does he have any kind? No, he doesn't have an upgrade going, so it's strictly not having enough mass / reclaim to balance his economy, and that is a shame to see. Plasma pulling his units back towards the ACU. The ACU will be able to, of course, tank a little bit of extra damage, do a little bit of extra damage, and overall swing the fight in his favor, even though his unit count is substantially lower. That is going to leave the northern side wide open, though. ACU having to stay in place and fight off these units at the front. Plasma is going to run his ACU back in order to not get swarmed. He's playing it safe, maintaining his map control and putting his faith in his superior economy and production in order to win the game, instead of risking his ACU in a foolish fashion versus units that could potentially kill him. Up on the north, the Mantis out of the factory is not, I don't think, going to be able to save this factory. More units moving around from the south to kill it. And then we've got a radar going down on this forward edge. This being a 5-kilometer map, that is probably going to cover the vast majority of this area. That is a freeze, which means the game is probably ended 5 minutes into the future. I'm going to wait it out for just a little bit and see exactly what goes down, if the game will restart for us. I would assume that Plasma will have won that. I think that he has demonstrated that he has indisputable map control and the ability to absolutely hammer Momo with units. Let's see. Got a message from Rowie. There it is. Rowie did not actually have an answer for me on the win status, but we're gonna let this thing play out. Plasma stalling for 24 mass per tick, but again, that is not a big deal when you're stalling, as long as you are able to get a little reclaim. When you've got the vastly superior number of factories, you're going to be able to push out more tanks as long as you can get NGs out into the field. Bomber now hitting the power generators in the back. This is why people build in groups of 3, not 4 per side, if you're ever curious, because the bombers have a harder time killing extra power generators. Unit's going to move in on this edge. Plasma Wolf skirting just a little bit, not wanting to overcommit to that area. He's now got 70% map control. His opponent tightly sealed up into the back of the box canyon. And now it just remains to be seen how long it'll take Plasma to get the critical mass of units up to eradicate Orange from the map. It's going to be a total of 4, 5, 6, possibly 7 land factories, although he did abandon that one, probably because he started mass stalling quite ferociously. It's going to be 25 to 9 income, which is just an absolutely ridiculous advantage to be had. The only hope that Momo would have is having an equal number of factories and have engineers on attack move orders into the clumps where they can reclaim all of this stuff to run the factories. If that is in place before an attack like this happens, there is still a chance that you would be able to deny and even come back. But as things are, I mean, the guy's got borderline triple Momo's income. Plasma is surely going to take this, barring a tremendous bout of stupidity. A lovely overcharge there, taking 3 or 4 units at once. Momo now getting surrounded, getting knocked down below 3,000 HP. I do believe that that is game. And boom goes the dynamite. That was excellently played on Plasma's part. Well done indeed, good sir. That was I think pretty much one of the better builds I've seen on this map. If you're ever looking for something that'll win you a game on Williamson's Bridge, definitely do this thing. Momo, I can't say as much for. He was assisting that early factory, not getting additional build power online, not expanding properly. It was a valiant attempt, but in the end, Plasma won out. Well played to both of these guys. Let's bail on out of here and get into the next game. That is gonna wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.